Spirit can't be taken away from you by the world. Note, where did the disciples receive the Spirit? They didn't receive it when they were in Galilee, where their businesses were, where their concerns were, where their fish were, where their taxes were. They received it in Jerusalem when they had no business. Jerusalem wasn't their place. They had nothing. They had no concern. They didn't have their business accounts. They didn't have their iPads or their iPhones. They didn't have it. They had nothing there. They were just waiting on the Lord. And so that sometimes having nothing is a very good thing, because it has nothing to impede you from receiving all that God has. When you have the greatest treasure from God, you don't end up living possessively, because you're not desperate anymore. You're rich now. Live by the wind. It says here, I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. The wind. If you look at the wind, well, you can't see it. There's no limit. You cannot measure the wind. I mean, in physical dimensions. You can't see where it comes from. Messiah said to Nicodemus when he said, you must be born again. And he says, how? He said, well, it's like you're born of the Spirit. You can't see where the wind is going, where it's coming. You can't see the wind. But it is so with those who are born of the Spirit. It's the wind. All of us. If you've been changed, your life has totally been changed by something that no one else could see. I mean, they couldn't see it. It just came into your life. And now how real it is, your life is totally changed, but by something that nobody could see. The wind, you cannot see the size of the wind. The nature of the wind is to blow. It goes against limits. How do you live? When you live by things, everything has a dimension, has limits. Everything is limited. You live bound. When I was in shop class in high school, we had shop class, or middle school, and we did mechanical drawings. Everything has dimensions. Everything has height, width, and depth. So the tablets of Sinai, you could put them on a mechanical drawing. It has that. Everything in the Old Covenant, you had a tabernacle with mechanical specifications. But when the Spirit came on the day of the law, there was no dimensions, no height, width, length, no limitations, no specifications of dimensions, because you can't measure the wind. What does it tell you about the flesh and the Spirit? The flesh has dimensions and limits. When you live by the flesh, you get limited. When you live by yourself, you get limited by yourself. However strong you are, that's your limitation. However smart you are, that's your limitation. Whatever you have, wherever you can only be at one place at one time, that's all limitations. And your emotions, limited. Your past, limited. Any problems you have, that's a limitation. But when you live by the Spirit, you're not living by the limitation of the flesh. The Spirit is infinite. It's the Spirit of God. Its nature is like the wind. There's no ending to it. His love is what? Everlasting. His joy is beyond understanding. His peace passes understanding. If you live by yourself, you're limiting yourself by yourself. But if you live by the Spirit, you live in the unlimitations of God, because it's God's Spirit. So if you live by the Spirit, you can say, I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. It's to live by the wind. In other words, you're not limited by your mind anymore. You're not limited by your thoughts. It says that Paul says the pagans, they were darkened by their thoughts. They were unlimited. You can be like a circle in your thoughts. It becomes this nothing, this circle, and you're laying on your bed, and it's going over and over. But you live by the Spirit. You're not living by your thoughts. You're living by God's thoughts. You may not even know why you're led to do something, but hey, it's a Spirit. You couldn't understand it, but God did. You could never figure it out. It may be something you were supposed to be somewhere. God knows exactly where you were supposed to be, knew what was going to happen, turned you. You were going by the mind of the Spirit. And you end up being much smarter than you are. Sometimes when you're talking and you're sharing the gospel, you say things, you say, how did that come out of my mouth? Wow, that's good. But I couldn't come up with that. I like that. I'm ministering to me. It's the Spirit ministering to you. When you move in the Spirit, you become smarter than you are. You become more powerful than you are. You know, there's story after story of people. I mean, they're supposed to be on a plane, and the Spirit said no. They didn't know why the plane crashed. I mean, but one after the other, where they were supposed to be in a certain place at a certain, and there was something waiting for them. Then that happened to me. That's happened to me many times. I remember I was at a wedding, doing a wedding here, and I was just led. It was the reception led to just get out of the wedding reception and just go for a walk. And I went for a walk, and there's a guy. One guy alone waiting, he's separated. And I walked there and he says, I've been waiting for you. He said, you know, when you were praying that prayer, when you did the wedding, you gave an invitation to pray a prayer, and I prayed that prayer, but I need help. I have questions about it. And so I did, but the Lord had me there by the Spirit. I didn't know. Lord had me go up a mountain. I didn't know. And a guy's waiting and says, I've been waiting for you. We don't know, but when you're open to the Spirit, you're living much smarter than you are, much stronger than you are, much more solid than you are. It's to live unlimited. Live beyond. Your flesh may be weak, but the Spirit is strong. To live, it's the power to live beyond even your fears. To live beyond the messed up, the emotions and whatever the problems are, to live beyond that stuff. To live beyond, just to go beyond it. It's like there's a famous story in the ancient world, the Gordian knot. Said anybody who can untie this knot will have the power. And it said that Alexander the Great came to that, took his sword, just cut through the knot. Well, that's sort of what the Spirit does. You can be all knotted up in your emotions and all the issues and the things and the messed upness. God, the Spirit, just cuts through that. You don't have to live by that. Forget, why do I have to struggle with that? Put that aside. I'm living by the Spirit. You move in Him. You move in all things. It's the power to break. The Spirit is the power of breakthrough because it goes beyond limitations. In John 20.